All right, looks like we're live.
Awesome.
Hello, hey Brennan, and hello everyone. Welcome to the UI Breakfast webinar space. And today the topic is productized consulting, and our co-host is the amazing Brennan Dunn, who has brought some of his friends on here. And Brennan, I'm passing the flag over to you.
Okay, cool. Well, Jane, thanks for having us. First off, I've known Jane for a while. She's spoken at W Freelancing Conference in Europe, and we've known each other for a while, and it's been amazing just seeing what she's done with both UI Breakfast from like a helping products get better at design, but all things consulting, freelancing, and so on. And she's recently done a lot with productized consulting, which is something that truthfully I haven't focused too much on with my own stuff. And I love a lot of the angles that Jane takes with productized consulting, along with what she has to say. So I'm excited for this because productized consulting is if you're looking to build actual products one day, most people I know who have done that successfully from freelancing have gone through some sort of productized consulting route because it helps them get better at sales and marketing and to sell their own time as an actual product itself. So I'm really excited to see what Jane has to say. And yeah, let's kick it off. I'm going to be hosting Q&A. So if you have questions throughout Jane's presentation, just either drop a note in the chat or click ask a question in Crowdcast. I'll moderate it all. I'll keep track. And yeah, so that's all I've got to say in terms of an intro.
Amazing. So I'm going to share my screen now and show you some slides. Okay.
I'm going to go on mute, by the way, so I don't have any background noise.
Okay, there we go. All right, Brennan, let me know if the slides are up. Hey, Brennan.
I see him. Sorry, I was on mute, and I realized you probably didn't see my thumb up on the video. Yeah, perfect.
Fantastic. I was once in a group call and I was on mute and I was like, why are all these men not listening to me? It was just a mute button. Yep. Anyways, so the topic is productized consulting. And essentially, productized consulting can be defined as selling your services online as a fixed price package with the predefined terms that allows you to do many things that regular hourly billing cannot. And to get started, I'd love to tell you a little bit more about myself. So my top things at the moment are a SaaS product that I'm a co-founder of. It's called userlist.io. I run a weekly UI Breakfast podcast that focuses on UI UX, obviously, and SaaS product strategy. And I have 2 books currently on sale. I've written 4, but those 2 are the most popular ones. One is focusing on web application design. It's called the UI Audit. And the one that today's talk is based on is called Your Productized Consulting Guide, which went live a few months ago. And Your Productized Consulting has been with me for about 5 years by now. And it's been an amazing format. So I highly recommend, it's a low-level try. I highly recommend that you give it a try in your business. So the entry point, the biggest problems that clients face is that they're actually scared to hire us because they never know who's standing on the other side of the screen. A ton of questions is raising their head. Can I trust this person? They don't know the price because typically price is not listed on the site. And even if you can see the rate, it's still not obvious how much the process is how much the project is gonna cost. They have no idea what the process looks like. They don't know how to get started. And they're always afraid that the scope will spiral out of control and they will, get really out of budget. So all these objections are so common. They happen to us every day when we're just hiring a new person. But as consultants, we can combat all these objections by offering fixed price packages. Maybe not for all of your services, but definitely for the entry point. And productized consulting helps you do just that. But it's not only great for your clients, it's also great for yourself, because it makes you an easy, transparent, attractive hire. It helps you to save a ton of time writing proposals, because instead of writing a unique proposal every time, you can just send people to your landing page where the entire service is described. It helps you transition to value-based pricing. I know Brennan talks a lot about value-based pricing, but it's the hardest point is to get started. And with productized consulting, you have way more opportunities for that, because you have confidence to charge the same price for the same package totally based on value. You don't have to, come up with some kind of value-based number for each separate proposal. And productized consulting helps sell recurring services as a fixed price package. And that is amazing, because recurring services mean that a certain amount of money is dripping in your bank account every month. And that gives an amazing stability to our feast and famine consulting and freelancing cycle. Today, I'm going to walk you through several steps that will help you plan and implement your first service, maybe starting today, immediately after the webinar. And the step one would be to plan your services page, which is a page on your website. Here you can see an example how it looks on my site. It's definitely very simple, just a few paragraphs of text with headlines, and it's one of the most visited pages on my site. Actually, the most visited page after the homepage. You can see how I'm listing available services, how I'm listing the prices, and people can have a glance at what I'm actually offering. This is very transparent as opposed to what you can see on other people agency pages, for example, because first, people don't publish specific services. Second, they don't publish their prices. But trust me, people love seeing prices because it helps them anchor everything to their own ecosystem. And even if you're too expensive, they will still have respect for you and will keep you in mind for future projects. So your services page is the representation, like a menu of your services. And the MVP for any productized consulting product is essentially just one paragraph on your services page. You don't even have to create a special landing page for that. And writing that can take you half an hour. And it's probably the fastest and the most express way to check out a concept and try it out. For example, if you compare that to products or even software, the amount of time required to take any kind of MVP out there is incomparably more. So the basic services lineup that I suggest you should try consists of these tiers, these price points. First, you can try strategy call for a low fixed price. And it should definitely cost more than your typical hourly rate, even if it's 1 hour, because preparing for that, organizing, it takes time. An entry point gig, usually with tiers, represents your most popular offering with an affordable price. It's not too small, so it's interesting for you. It's much more interesting than just getting together for a call, but it's still affordable for the client to test the waters. An advanced offering represents a more complex package, and you can also try recurring monthly service. I recommend doing that in the range of $500 to $1,500. These prices, of course, are very much taken from the sky, but they are applicable in our consulting ecosystem. And don't be afraid to charge more. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. There are a few more kinds of offerings that you could also have. One is a tiny gig, something under $100, maybe an express version of your package for people who are not ready to purchase your bestseller. A training offer first, it allows you to make money by teaching others. And second, it indicates your authority, which is fantastic. it shows your credibility right on the page. Mercedes offer is something that you would love to do that most likely will not get sold because of a high price point. But if you're familiar with pricing strategies that putting something way more expensive on the higher end makes other offerings of yours look much more affordable. So the anchoring standpoint and also the confidence standpoint are great reasons to introduce one like that. As for my own Mercedes offer, I have a team training, I think team coaching for starting at $8,000 a month. And I took this number from a real life situation when I had someone come to me and ask me for an estimate. So it's a real life situation. However, I'm not training anyone right now, but it serves as a nice anchor on my mini page. So here are the prices that you can see. Monthly credit reduction for teams is the one that I just told you about. Two changes that were made since the book was published, I would love to tell you about. First, I raised the price on my strategy call because I realized that it takes a ton of effort to prepare for that, and it almost takes like a day of my work to just ship an hourly call because of the energy and everything. It's always very exciting to help people, and it's always exciting for the client, but it really is not worth $229 that it used to be. I discontinued a smaller tiny product package because it was attracting the wrong kind of clients, because my typical rate is a little bit more than $1,600 a day. So selling something less than that attracts the wrong kind of client that will probably not purchase more, because typically we go for a large engagement. And my best selling product has been custom UI audit. And I have two tiers for that, 1,700 and 3,400. And the 3,400 one has been definitely more popular because it involves some hands-on work. You can take a look at the page at yourbreakfast.com/services. Here is another lineup of my friend and co-founder, Benedict. He is a brilliant developer. He has his pricing set in euros. He has a consultation call, a software performance review for 2,500. He has an ongoing retainer product starting at $2,000 a month. As you can see, he likes having the mathematical numbers in his pricing because he's a developer. His typical rate is about $1,500 a day, and he has two training offers for individuals and for teams, which dramatically spell his authority right there on the page. Here are some resources on pricing that I recommend you to read up on. And I will include the link to the slides after the presentation is over, so don't worry about saving those links. These pricing resources will help you get familiar with the most popular pricing strategies. One of them is introducing tiers. Another one that we talked about is anchoring, and so on. Crafting your offer. First, you need to define your audience. It sounds obvious, but it's not obvious to everyone. You can't just offer a special service. You have to offer your service to someone. And it's much better that if you start with defining that someone before you get started. So to define your audience, I recommend that you remember your top 3 favorite clients and see what they have in common. And you should absolutely niche down on a certain business type. As a designer, I'm serving personally smaller scale SaaS companies. And you would think that this is pretty small, but really you can go really down and narrow. And some consultants say that you can niche until it hurts. So you could say, I'm serving, SaaS businesses in medical industry or education industry or lawyers or specific type of lawyers. And you will get known for that much better. It sounds scary, but it's definitely worth doing. The second step is defining your expertise and scope, defining what exactly you're going to do. To do that, once again, remember your top 3 favorite projects. Niche down on the format. For example, if I'm addressing designers, then pick something that you'll be designing, websites or web apps or mobile apps, because all of these require different technical skill set. They require different tools, different approaches. And if you get up to speed in one of them, you'll feel much more professional. And also think of common things and processes. And your sweet spot will be on the intersection of these three things. What do you like to do the most? What kind of projects do you find yourself doing more often than others? And what has the highest value for your clients? So sometimes you can delegate the busy work and somebody else can do the busy work, and you can just focus on the strategic standpoint. Or vice versa, your clients might appreciate yourself doing the busy work in some complex space, so you never know. But generally speaking, the better money and the better value lies in the strategic area. So as you grow as a professional, you'll find yourself crafting strategic offerings, guidance more than execution. Hey, Brennan, can you please let me know if everything is running smooth on the technical side?
Everything is great. I can see. Yep, I'm here. Just want to.
Fantastic. I just wanted to check in to make sure that I'm not staring at the blank screen.
No, all is good.
Fantastic. Okay, so the next one is defining your levels of involvement. And you can do a lot of things. You can do, as we said, strategic guidance, which actually just involves your commentary, your important advice. And a strategy call is a perfect example of strategic guidance. Or it could be in the shape of a monthly retainer where you get together with the entire team for a call or something like that. The next level is review and report, when you don't do anything hands-on yet, but you open your text editor, you review something more thoroughly, and you write a report, an audit or a list of recommendations or a roadmap, all kinds of things like that involve some craftsmanship of yours, but you don't open the actual tool. And the third level is doing everything yourself. So the second level means that you can pass that report for the client to execute. And hands-on work means that the deliverables will be shipped by yourself only. And as we said, shifting more towards strategic guidance and reviews will help you save time and be valid with your clients. Defining the price is an important one, of course, because the price is a big factor. And a few tips. Think of your delivery time and make it a double, because you will always have situations that involves a little bit of scope creep or maybe something else. You will also account for different organizational overhead because you will need to get together for calls, spend time emailing, providing maybe support after the thing. So it's a good practice to charge more. A great practice is creating tiers so that the client, instead of thinking whether they should go with your service or not, they're now picking between the tiers and thinking which of them are applicable to them particularly. And the biggest advice is, of course, to charge more, because surprisingly, a big price is an indicator of your own quality as a professional. And people, they might, of course, be out of the budget for some reason, but still, if you charge unreasonably low rates, if you try, competing on price, you will never succeed, because something of quality, something delightful, should not cost very little. Actually, the more it costs, the more respect you get from your client. And as you grow, and if you've been out in the consulting field for a while and have raised your rates, you will see that the quality of your clients increases dramatically as you increase your pricing. And that's an amazing rule, because all parties benefit. People get quality treatment from you, and you get quality pay from them. Give it a name. As you saw on the page, every service has a little name on it, and it should be clear, memorable. It should represent the essence of what you're doing well. And as my former boss used to say, that business names should make you want to throw money at them. So your name should be desirable, whatever it means for your industry. Things. But just a hint that it should not only be related to the service itself, but it could also have some words that denote business value, for example. Here is a screenshot from my website of 5 years ago when I did not know what productized consulting is, but I desperately wanted to become high-value consultant. So I invented 3 packages and created names for them, which were relevant to, I was doing mobile application design at that point. So the packages were called Lucky Espresso, Concept Cappuccino, and Double Device Latte, which involved iPad and iPhone designs. And I really did not ever sell a single package of those, but it was a very nice exercise on trying to define those packages. And I showed this page to my friend, and he said that, Jane, you need to work on your copy. So I started reading up on Joanna Weeb's writing courses, and ever since I've been building things not based on aesthetics, but based on value, and that has been a dramatic, successful change. So now you don't see any of those besides this little jar that's on my podcast cover. Recurring services are a fantastic way of selling your services online. A few tips for those who want to do that. Now, tip number 1 is automate your billing so that you don't have to chase your clients every month to pay your invoices. It's great to assign a recurring get-together date, maybe a recurring monthly call, so that you don't have to chase them again and set the date manually. It's absolutely necessary to have a goal for your engagement and a roadmap because it will give the purpose to your engagement. And also limit the contract. For example, say that you will commit to 6 months of working together, and after that, both parties have the right to reconsider whether it's a great fit anymore, or if they achieve their goal or not, or if it's worth to move on. Because otherwise, the recurring contract will look like, marriage, eternal love, let's be together forever, and we're all in business, and being together forever doesn't really work because things change all the time. And if you do a lot of recurring contracts, don't book yourself solid. Maybe book yourself half of the time, 50% of your time with recurring contracts, because you're gonna have vacations, you're gonna have amazing new projects that you can turn down. And if you're booked 100% with recurring clients, you will have to either overbook yourself and overload yourself with work, which leads to burnout very easily, which I checked out, and or you will have to turn everything down, and it's not exciting to turn down exciting opportunities. Step number 3. So we're talking about one offering, and we're going to see how you write your sales page. And the classic structure for a long form sales page, which consists primarily of text, even if you're a visual designer, it still should have the same structure. The classic structure is pain driven fix, as Emmy Hoy says. So first you call out the people's pain, the problem you're solving, which makes them stand in their track and pay attention to you. Then you describe how amazing the situation would be if the pain were solved. The fix is the services you're offering. Objections, which people will always have, and objections are an amazing opportunity to address them and to talk about them, and a call to action. When you talk about your fix, describe it well. And because this page, it's both a sales page and it's kind of a contract at the same time, because you're giving your clients an idea what the engagement will look like, what exactly you do and why, what the process is, what the client's role is in it. You can just simply outline the steps so that people know what exactly to expect, and answer common client questions. When you talk about the process on your sales page, you can cover and describe those phases: discovery, execution, and delivery. The discovery phase, just a second. The discovery phase includes how you will get together. Will it be a call? Will it be a questionnaire? I highly recommend, you should not start any consulting gig without an advance payment. And that is particularly true for productized consulting. And you should ask for 100% of the money upfront. And that's absolutely certain. Because you will see down the road that will offer money back guarantee, but having that money in your bank account gives all the parties more confidence. It gives the client the incentive to move forward more seriously, and it gives you the enthusiasm to move forward because you already have the money and you feel secure. The execution phase is actually what's happening, and the delivery phase describes what exactly the client will get. Are these PDF files, reports, I don't know, sketch files? Will it be a website that's live? What kind of support will you have? And stuff like that. So go into details of that. And you can also use that sales page to protect yourself, because when you offer your services as a fixed price package, you're also taking a large risk that your client will abuse you. So please do take time to describe what you won't do, what problems are not your area of responsibility, what are the common problems that you can see that cause a project to fail. Because as you work, you will see that the problems are repeating from time to time. So you can take time and describe those. And it's totally reasonable to include a paragraph that you as a professional reserve the right to determine the scope, which means that, for example, in my UI audit packages, I'm auditing web applications, but all applications are so different. And I could tell them I'm auditing, 5 screens or 10 screens, but screens can be so dramatically different from each other. And it never makes sense to just fix the number of screens. So I'm saying that we will review a reasonable number of key screens, and I'm ultimately the one who will define how much we will do. But usually I have never seen a client that has not been happy with the scope, because I'm also generous on my side, but I do reserve the right to be protected. Overcoming objections. There are 2 common ways of doing that, besides answering the frequently asked questions. So one is to provide testimonials, which doesn't need additional comment. It's definitely necessary. And provide a money back guarantee. When you're just starting out, you can include testimonials that relate to your professional activity in general. And as you do iterations of this new service, you can replace the testimonials with something that is specific to this particular package. And money back guarantee is, of course, a discussion point. And I've seen people that think that this is not applicable, but if you have a client relationship that's going really sour, you're going to be looking at money back anyways. And it's much better if you just announce that up front. If you're doing a recurring service, it makes sense to include a point that you will only refund the latest month, because otherwise there will be too much money at stake. Listing your price on your page is also an art by itself. So you can use tiers, you can use a graphic representation of a pricing grid. You should absolutely frame your price with value. That is, don't just shout it out in the dark, but include business value-based words around it. You can create urgency, and that can be as little as saying, this package currently costs that much, which means that it can change in future. And for goodness sake, don't anchor the package prices to your rates, because these have nothing to do. If you do anchor them, you're gonna ruin all your value-based attempts, which is really bad. So don't try to justify the price with the time spent. Justify the price with value. Next view page is an obvious call to action. The client should have a clear understanding how to get started on your package. Here are some options that you can include. Make a payment, which only works on smaller packages, and I personally am not a fan of that, because typically people need to make sure that there is a human being on the other side saying, yes, all right, here's the payment link. That works much better than just, wiring the payment in the dark to someone. Schedule a call is a fantastic one. I like it most because first people can see an idea of your availability, and they make a small commitment. And when they do schedule a first call, you can then send them a payment link. Email me at this address is the classic one. It allows the person to compose a free form description of their product. And for me as a consultant, it's always interesting to see how people describe their projects, and that can already be either an indication of a great client or an indication of a ton of red flags. So I like that slightly better than another one, which is filling out a form. However, I know a ton of people who are swearing by their client intake forms. I used to be like that as well. So it's really up to you and your consulting style. Capture leads with something free. So there will be always a ton of tire kickers and onlookers on your page, and you don't really want to leave them without anything. So it's a great idea to have a smaller call to action that will allow you to add them to your mailing list. A good call to action example is not ready for a custom UI audit yet? Try solving the problem yourself by using my free email course called the 1 hour UI audit. That's what I do on my site, for example. You could have a little download, a little free course, and offering freebies, something that Brennan's been teaching continuously. And you should have no problem setting up something small and valuable. Here are some resources to read up on long-form sales copy. One of them is The Brain Audit by Sean D'Souza. And another one is pretty old, but it's an article by Patrick McKenzie that dissects sales copy of Nick DeSabato's draft revise service, I think 5 years ago or something like that. Delivering and polishing your offer starts with letting people know about your new package, putting it on your website, telling people, and pointing your new leads to the service. It doesn't solve your top of the funnel problem. So if your website doesn't receive any traffic, you're not going to receive any traffic because you have a productized consulting offer. However, when you do receive those leads, it's going to be much easier to convert them because the friction is much lower with fixed price packages. Doing a test run is a fantastic way to polish your offer. I suggest that you do maybe 1 or 2 runs at a big discount. For example, 50% off, because people love getting something like that exclusively early. And since your service is still rough, you're probably going to get a lot of value of that too. You can practice your process. You get a shiny testimonial specific to this service, as we discussed before, and you get a lot of material to refine your sales page. You see where the pitfalls are. You see where what kind of questions people ask, what kind of problems they have, and you can address all of that as an opportunity on your sales page. Common mistakes. Once you get started with productized consulting, everyone will give a try on your kindness, and please don't compromise. Please don't compromise on the audience, scope, or price. If you committed to doing website audits, don't go around doing audits for brochures or mobile apps. If you committed on working with lawyers, please don't make an exception for your friend who is I don't know, a doctor, because doing that just makes everything quite worthless, because when you do something focused, you become better and better at that. And when you do diverse things, on the contrary, you just spend extra time and energy on learning new things a lot of times. And don't deviate from your process. If you said on your sales page that you're going to take the payment upfront and ship something in 5 days, don't agree for emergency projects. Don't agree to work with post payments, because that will kind of it will really test your tolerance, and it will show that you're way too kind. And being firm in this situation shows that you're professional, and it makes yourself respect yourself more, from what I have experienced. And my biggest motto in productized consulting and in client work in general is to exceed expectations. Since we baked in some price overhead for potential situations, then and you're charging enough to delight your clients, then please do your best. Go out of your way to delight your clients with little details, with the quality of your service, with predicting their expectations and meeting them and exceeding them. And that's always worth it, because ultimately the client delight, first, is something that makes you famous among others, and second, that's something that makes you really happy, as for myself. So that's about it, what I have to say for today. And for our listeners today, we have a special promo code for the book, which is Webinar 101, and you can get 30% off if you head over to my site and get the book there. And that's about it with my presentation. Brennan, do we have questions?
We do have questions. Yeah, let me get back on video. We've got one question so far. So as I read this off to Jane, if you guys have any more. Oh, actually, no, we have the ask a question thing has a few more too. Cool. All right, I'm going to get the one over to you that we got through chat. So with set packages, how do you deal with unique needs of a client that might exceed the work of a set package? And that was from, I believe that was from, who said that? Give me a second. Eric.
Okay, sorry. That should
do you need me to repeat that, or you got it?
Just a second. I'll deal with the with the nesting screens. Does everything look right now?
Looks good to me, yeah.
Okay, so yes, I would love you to repeat that, please.
Okay, so the question is, Eric asked, when you have set packages, how do you deal with unique needs of a client that might exceed the work of a set package?
It really depends, of course, but most times you can structure your work in the way that you can deal with some scope immediately based on the package and the process that you have for it. And you can set something aside for maybe future work and charge for that an extra fee, either fixed price fee or maybe an hourly rate, depending on how you work. So your goal as a consultant is you find structure in client projects. If like the majority of your clients are so unique that you have to invent new stuff every time, there's something wrong. Either your audience is too diverse, or you could probably maybe work on the diversity of your offerings and still find patterns in their needs.
Yeah, my own experience too. Oftentimes, I think there are some, especially you see this, I think more so with developers who are used to doing more kind of completely custom engagements, and then when they get into productized, it's hard to reconcile the custom work you've been doing with more fixed scope. But I think a lot of it is just really knowing intimately the needs of your potential clients and telling them, here's what you should be getting, here's exactly how you'll get there, and this is what I'll do to get you there, instead of kind of letting them kind of do whatever, whatever they might think they need. All right, so next question is from Brian. So some productized consulting or some productized service consultants offer a free 15-minute chat as an initial connection. What do you think about that versus charging for everything like paid calls, consultations, and so on?
I think it largely depends on your own availability, on your desire to learn, as opposed to your desire to protect your own time. So this is a balance. Like if you're totally new to the market, it might be worth to do a lot of those calls, because you're gonna learn a ton about the questions people ask, use that to refine your sales copy, and just gain some experience. But that's gonna come at the cost of your time. When you're down the road charging very high rates and already have solid pipeline of clients, then it's probably not worth it to just trade your time, because those little 15-minute meetings are not really painless, because they interrupt your flow and they can cost you like half day's work sometimes. If you're like myself, who can get easily unbalanced by an exciting project, exciting communication, or maybe an upsetting communication, like really painless. A good tip would be to use Calendly about maybe 1 or 2 days of your week. For take calls on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, or Mondays and only on a solid period of time. It's a great time saver and helps you focus more.
Yeah. All right. So another question is, I think there's kind of two questions in this. One of this is, do you receive payments up front, or do you invoice after the fact? And the second question kind of baked into that is, what do you think about taking credit card payments, or this is a US model, but ACH or bank-to-bank transfers?
The technical part depends on what you can. I think setting up Stripe payments should be possible if you're based in the US or EU. I'm based in Russia. We don't have Stripe, so that's a big pain point for me. However, the strategic part, which is taking money up front, to me, it's absolutely non-debatable. It gives you confidence, security, and it makes the client more serious about your work together. And it, of course, helps to weed out those who are like unreliable, that you would have to chase like for 2 months afterwards.
Yeah, I would add too that a lot of companies are able to spend between $600 and $800 US without needing approval from a manager. They often have a discretionary budget around that. So if you have your entry-level product below that, you should just have a payment form on your website. But some companies, especially more enterprise type companies, they can't pay with credit card. They do need they have a formal kind of accounts receivable process. But definitely just make sure that you understand, if their default is say net 60 or something like that, first off, do you want to get involved in that where you're not going to see potentially the money for 2 months? Or ideally, what can you do to front load that in a way that still conforms to the way that they pay vendors, which is what you would be, and still find a way to make that work. But yeah, definitely, there tends to be a distinction between sub $1,000 or sub $800 payments, which can be done without managerial approval most of the time and so on, versus like a $3,000 payment, which oftentimes the more money you ask for as the first payment, the more high touch the sales model might be. They might want to call, they might have a lot of emails back and forth. Whereas if you start with a small price point, there's a very good chance your automation coupled with your sales page and payment form can handle a lot of that selling for you. But if the first thing you're asking for is a $5,000 payment, that often won't work unless they talk to you first or something.
Yeah, but generally speaking, productized consulting works best for the entry point gigs, especially like coming back to developers who have a lot of custom work, for example. It's nearly impossible to structure their further client project work, but it's great to have assessments, roadmaps, and stuff like that in the range of 1,000 or 2,000 maybe done up front, and then it shouldn't be a problem to get to get that kind of payment, and B to structure that work.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Would you mind if I answer the payment questions, because I see a lot of continue.
Oh, go for it. Yeah, go for it.
Because I'm based in Russia, and trust me, I just hate those barriers and stuff like that. So for those who are not in the US, workarounds could be PayPal. So probably you can do PayPal and ask for money, do money requests. Another workaround is Gumroad, which works great for things like $1,000. For example, I handle my podcast sponsorships through Gumroad. For people who do like one episode, they can purchase, pay $300 there. There's TransferWise, as Jeremy says. It works great for direct quick, direct money transfers directly into your bank account. There is also for SaaS, there is a service called Paddle, which is essentially an analog for Stripe, is just supporting countries that are not doing Stripe. So for collecting SaaS, Paddle.com, it's based in the UK, I believe, can take payments and aggregate them into your PayPal account. So stuff like that, there are still alternatives. You should try and get paid, really. It's not that easy, but it works.
Cool. All right, so next is from Graham. So how important have you found having a recurring element in your offering is compared to one-time sales?
It depends on what you want from your life. For example, 4 years ago, Brennan was one of my recurring clients as well. So I had like 3 to 5 clients at once, and that paid like, I don't know, something in the range, I think each of them was about $1,500. So it amounted to a nice amount of income, and I didn't have to do any sales. And it was amazing. But at the same time, as I described with the problems of booking yourself solid with recurring gigs, one day I had an amazing new projects come in, and also I had an offer from Envision to write a book for them. And I also had those, recurring clients, and I just burned out like hell. And since then, I have not been offering recurring products just because I burned myself. However, it was an amazing pile of cash I was sitting on, and my husband was like, "Whoa, you're firing all your clients? That is so stupid. Like, you can just give away that amazing, resource." So it really depends on your strategy. But having a couple is a great way to leverage feast and famine.
Cool. All right, so next question is suggestions on growing relevant traffic to your site so you can sell more consulting. For instance, creating relevant content for your audience on your site, guest posting, etc.
Brennan, I'll address that to you.
I think the easiest thing to do is to borrow other people's audiences, meaning what I see a lot of people doing is they create their consulting website and they go out and they say, I'm going to start blogging and Google will give you traffic. Google is going to only give you traffic when they see you as an authority, and to become an authority more so now than ever, you need to have backlinks from reputable sites. So the easiest thing to do, I think, is to approach other websites and either offer to guest post. Go on podcasting is so much easier because you don't need to do editing. You just show up and talk for 30 minutes and then that's it. You get a backlink. You could do that. You could do there's a lot of different things you can do to get people over to your site. When I started PlanScope way back in the day, I just got involved with online forums that were talking about freelancing. And the same questions would keep coming up, and then I'd just get involved and provide comments and so on. But eventually I'd link to oh, I've actually written an article about this. And that article came from just hearing this thread again and again and just writing my own 800-word version of how I would respond in depth. And that's what got the initial traction. And then from there, it becomes easier when you have your own content to be able to pitch. If you have nothing online, if they Google you and nothing comes up, and then you pitch some site on hey, can I guest post for you, or can I go on your podcast? Unfortunately, they're probably going to think who are you and how do I know you can actually teach my audience anything? So by having some sort of asset like an email course or something like that, I think an email course is great because you can approach a podcast and say, hey, I have a 10-lesson email course on X. It's very concise and systematic. I'd love to come on and give a 30-minute interview with your audience who I know this and this about because I know something about your podcast, and I could kind of talk about what's included in one of the things I learned in producing this course. What do I cover in the course? That tends to work really well because I'm currently starting a business called Right Message, and it's a new audience for me. I had to start from scratch, and we realized it's really hard to churn out articles about 10 ways to increase conversions on your website because you're not going to get traffic. So we started to really go out, write authoritative content and use that content more to get influencer types instead of Google. So we use the content and go in front of Growth Lab, which is Ramit Sethi's blog, and basically said, hey, can we take this article and make it like 5,000 words and make it really in-depth and authoritative. And that early on, that was like our first guest post, got us a ton of traffic. Really, Google sees like, oh, Growth Lab is linking to this news website. They must be legitimate. And then now we're starting to ramp up organic traffic. So, that's my advice, is just cheat and go to other people who have already done the hard work and have that audience, and find ways of helping them by helping their audience, right? So that's what I think I know Jane's done that, I've done that, whether it's in person at like a conference, which is a little harder, it involves travel and all that stuff, or just going on podcasts, doing guest posts to start, and just finding ways to kind of provide value. I mean, that's really what it's about. And then eventually you'll get enough people linking to you, and you'll get enough kind of brand awareness and have an audience and so on, that you'll start to see organic traffic come your way. Now, I'm not an SEO guy, I'm not an SEO expert, but my rule of thumb has always just been write really good content, go on people's websites and either write content for them or go on their podcast. And one thing leads to another, and eventually you get traffic. So that's my thinking.
Absolutely, that's so right. Also, there is kind of that chicken and the egg problem between your content and the audience that will listen to that. So your mailing list needs to grow with your content. What worked for me over years was just creating quality content first. For example, in 2013, I published a book to virtually 50 people on my list. And the book, of course, made no money, but that was a good sacrifice to make the book, topic for discussion for further things down the road, for client work, for maybe going on to deal sites with that. And the same thing for publishing more in podcasts, which was a huge time investment. However, it just gives you connections with people, and it gives, creates an aura of links around yourself. Not like links in the link building thing sense, but more of whipping activity around the name, even if you're the host, not the speaking person on the podcast.
Yeah. That's another good thing too, is by starting your own podcast, let's say, you can go out and you can get, you're not, to be completely honest, not everyone who you interview is going to tweet about it, email about it, or anything like that. But just that recognition you get, and then the fact that you can kind of start in a weird way, start small, right? And then you can go and approach, like if this person you interviewed has been on these other podcasts, you could go to those other podcasts or has interviewed other people or something and say, hey, Bob was on my podcast, and I know you and Bob, or something like that. I'd love to have you on. So that kind of creates that relevancy to them. Okay, Veronica asked a good question. Would you get paid to do a guest post, or would you consider it a marketing investment? If you're getting paid, the expectation is that you are creating a product for them. Whereas if it's free, you're more able, I would say, to self-promote. So what I would strongly encourage you to do, if you are going to do guest posts or podcasts or whatever, would be to come up with some sort of like the email course I mentioned, create an asset. Give it a vanity domain like freepricingcourse.com, valuemyfunnel.com. These are all like domains that I've created that link to some sort of lead magnet that generate opt-ins. So if I go on a podcast, I can mention that. If I'm writing a guest post, I could find a way to make it so like, hey, if you want to go deeper into what I just covered over the last, however many words, I've created a 10-lesson email course that you can take. But if you're getting paid, they tend to not be as cool with you doing that. So I personally see it as a channel, an acquisition channel, and I don't expect to get paid, but some sites like Growth Lab does pay you. So, if they want to pay me, cool.
Even if you get even respectable sites still pay something in the range of, I don't know, $500, $1,000 per post, which is not a huge amount of money anyways. And I don't know, I might be wrong. I have a sense that, for example, Listapart is paying authors, or they used to. Getting on Listapart, it's so amazing that you would do that for free anyways. And that additional cash of, I don't know how much, it's definitely not the main incentive and promoting guest posts is hard enough by itself, that expecting to get paid for this is probably not a great idea unless you're a professional writer. I know Forbes is a special ecosystem where authors get paid according to the successfulness of their content. For example, I know Thomas Lorinavicius, he's been on our podcast. He makes, I don't know numbers, but he makes it a professional source of income. But that's a lot of very quality writing, and definitely, I don't think that's marketing for him. It's more of, he's more of a writing professional.
Yep. Yeah, and to be honest, again, podcasting is so much easier than writing, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, so keep the questions coming in. Those are all the questions we've got asked so far, but yeah, keep them. And Jane, do you want to drop maybe a link in the chat to the book with coupon code and stuff, just in case people would highly, this is actually, if you think about it, what just happened here, Jane did a 20-30 minute presentation. That could have very well been an interview on a podcast or a 1,500 word blog post that then did something like what she's doing now, which is saying, look, if you want to go deeper into this, if you like what we covered and you want something a little more systematic and in-depth, I have a book on it. And so find ways of comparing that to selling consulting, right? So you introduce the problem, here's the problem, here's why I think it needs to be solved, here's what being solved could, or here's what the problem being solved could do for you and your business. And then if you're interested in finding out how this can help you in your business, go here, and that can then lead them into some sort of, ideally, some sort of nurturing funnel that leads them to your productized service. So, your whole goal as a consultant becomes getting leads, and these leads are not project leads. Instead, it's audience leads. It's people that, you go on a podcast, you do a guest post that go into your funnel and then pop out on the other end, problem aware, solution aware, and then product aware, knowing of what you're able to help them with. And then that's where you present your service offering. And then you get them there to, either pay for a consultation with you or road mapping session or something.
Okay, and here are the links to the slides and to the book.
Cool, awesome.
Well, I think we're just in time to wrap up for today.
Well, awesome job, Jane. Really enjoyed the presentation.
Thank you so much, Brennan, for taking the time, appearing here, and curating the questions, and just being so awesome to share it with your audience.
Anytime, yeah.
Well, I think now we are done, and the recording will be available online. I will send the links to everyone who was registered for the webinar, even if they didn't attend. And thanks everyone for spending 60 minutes with us today. Hope it's great material to start something of your own and to practice that little bit of consulting and productized consulting. So thank you everyone, and have a great day.
See y'all, bye-bye.